What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PixelPlay Podcast. My name is Adam, aka CS Radical. Happy to join you guys on this episode number 170. I'm joined as always by nobody and nobody. Kaylan and Chris are off today. Chris especially is being a particularly massive asshole. He's out in California having so much fun out at Disney. Is it Land or World? I can never remember which of the two goes where. But he is gone. We are flying solo today. So before you just end this podcast now, because I know none of you like listening to me anyway, this episode is going to be a real fun one. We're going to go over the rest of the releases that at least have some level of importance or interest on my side. We're going to kind of take a look at what's left on the board and how is that looking forward to the Game Awards potentially for Game of the Year nominations. I'm going to give an idea of what I think is personally going to be the current 6 nominees, and then we'll see if there's anything that might be able to factor into the overall list at the end of the year. But of course, always don't forget, if you're listening to this on YouTube, watching this on YouTube, I should say, one of these days I'm going to start saying that correctly. But hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on any audio platform, whether it's Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a rating, leave a like, leave a share, leave a comment, whatever you can do. Keep that algorithm a chugging. And of course, don't forget our link tree, linktr.ee/pixelplay podcast, where our link to our Discord, where you can talk with us, ask questions, maybe you have a future episode idea you got there, or of course, link to our socials, all of that jazz. But hey, why don't we just get right into things? So play-wise, I haven't really done much in the vein of new stuff. I do have the intention to try out the Plucky Squire at some point. I haven't gotten around to that yet. I've been doing some other things in the meantime. Wild Bastards I haven't gotten too much deeper into. It's also been a busier week for me, that in terms the entire weekend I was busy, so I didn't have nearly as much time as I used to. And any time that I've been spending recently, gaming has kind of taken a back seat. And I think as we get into the big list, for the rest of the year, there's kind of a reason as to why it's kind of quiet for a last half of the year, at least in my perspective at this point. So I've actually been watching a lot more anime and catching up on a lot of material that I normally don't have nearly as much time to watch. So I've definitely gotten some of that backlog out. I did finally catch the first little bit of Shangri-La Frontier, which is the big one that I'm super into right now. I'm currently about 3 episodes into that. That one is fantastic. I've always been a fan of the, you're stuck in a game. Well, I guess in this case, not stuck in a game, but in the playing within a game stuff. Block Horizon is still one of my favorite anime of all time. Shangri-La Frontier is like a guy who is trying to, push his way solo through this VR MMO where it's meant to be really, really difficult. And he's the guy that, would do like a no armor run in Dark Souls kind of level thing. And it's a very interesting anime to watch. So that's something you're curious about. Take a look into that. But other than that, I still haven't got around to Astrobot. Again, trying to keep playtime with that with my girlfriend because she really likes watching it. And, well, when you go to a wedding over the weekend and you don't have nearly as much time together when, she works at a place where she's always on the road, it gets a little bit more difficult. So I still am only 3 hours into Astrobot, and one of these days I feel like I might just give up and just finally go and play some levels regardless. But I'm trying to be a good boyfriend and keep that going. But yeah, I don't really have anything new play-wise, so we might as well just skip straight to the meat and potatoes of this. This is going to be likely a shorter episode. I say, as I always say, when episodes are going to be short, they end up being long because I ramble, but we'll see what happens here. So we have, I want to say 3 months, but realistically it's like 9 weeks, because everybody knows once you get to double digits in December, no one cares anymore. There's nothing coming out. So from here, in the last game that I dated on my list is at the 10th of December. And we are going to take a look at the ones that I noted here and see what's interesting, how I kind of think it's going to go. I'm going to give a rating of do I think it's going to be, potential nominee material? Do I think it's going to be okay? Do I think it's going to be, potentially, a miss? We'll see how I, look at these things here. I did put mostly ones that are of some recognition or of some value that should have some level of interest by everybody. I did put a couple in there, though, that are more particularly for me in my interest, because there's some indie stuff that I think people just aren't too aware of. But we'll see how you all think about it as we go through this list here. So let's start right at the top with probably the most rare one that a lot of people may not know about. It's called Victory Heat Rally. It's basically like a retro racing, like old school, almost feels like it could be on like a Super Nintendo sort of game. That one's just a super interesting indie game for me. I think that, it's one that I can't see it being bad. It's obviously not going to be so amazing that it's going to topple something, but it's going to be just a nice little fun indie game. So that's something to look into. The 4th of October is the Until Dawn remaster. I don't see like anything to come of that. I can't imagine that there's going to be anything coming of that apart from, it might just do like decently well in the ratings, but I don't think you're going to see that of all things like get any sort of real recognition, because a lot of people, to be honest, weren't really asking for this. So I don't really know if there was any reason to do it. So I wouldn't see much to be of that. The 8th of October, Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred, that being the DLC. Did Game Awards have a DLC sort of award last year? I'm trying to remember now. I think they might have. If that's the case, like, I would be shocked if it doesn't make that list. I mean, Diablo 4 is a pretty big series. I know that, right now we look at Activision Blizzard with not the most fond of eyes, but I would be pretty shocked that if it didn't get a decent amount of recognition. Even like a lot of people really didn't go very well for Diablo 4 over the course of its lifespan, but the reviews were still relatively good, so I wouldn't be shocked if it's a similar story for Vessel of Hatred. But I mean, I think it'll be fine. I mean, apart from maybe getting recognition if there's like a DLC award, I don't think you're going to see too much coming out of this. Our first real interesting one, also on the 8th of October, is going to be the Silent Hill 2 remake. And that's the one where I honestly am not sure where I stand on how it's going to go, because this could be anywhere between really, really good praise to really, really bad praise, because, well, it's Konami. So you can only expect so much from them, not to mention how many times has this gone through the ringer. I mean, PT was supposed to be a thing way before Kojima left. And now with this, I mean, the vibes that I'm getting, even just based off of the not very well received, I don't know if you call it a tech demo. I can't remember what the full name of it was, but there was that really cool like first person Silent Hill trailer that came out that I thought looked really, really interesting, but a lot of people really didn't like. And I didn't do very well, so it wasn't really a great sign. I kind of lean in the camp that I think the Silent Hill 2 remake is probably going to land in fine territory. But I think if there's any one of these things on the list has a good chance of potentially ousting one of the 6 I'll put towards the end of this show when I talk about what I think is the current Game of the Year nominees. This one has a shot at it, I think. It might have the biggest shot of it, only because of it being Silent Hill 2, which is a legendary horror game. And there always tends to be a remake somewhere on there. Although, I'll spoil it ahead. We know Rebirth is going to be on that list. Rebirth is kind of in a way a remake. So I guess, that already counts. But hey, that is a later problem. We'll figure that out as we go. But Silent Hill 2 remake, I think is going to be okay. But this is the first one on the list that I would say has a real chance at making some waves and maybe potentially taking a nominee spot. But we will see. 11th of October, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I mean, it's going to be fine, probably. Most of these games tend to be pretty basic. The only real Dragon Ball Z game in the last, 10 years that I've really been into was the Arc System Works fighting game, which was Dragon Ball FighterZ. And that's also partly biased because Arc System Works, in my opinion, is the best fighting game developer out there. This one, I'll admit, the trailers have done nothing for me. So, I'm in the sense of I don't really care what it does, and I also just think that it'll be probably just fine. I would be shocked if the reviews come out and make it seem like it's the best Dragon Ball game ever made. I don't ever see it really being like that, because how many times can you make the same game over and over again with a slightly different coat of paint, I should say, and suddenly it becomes a 10 instead of a 7. I don't really know what that is. JRPG interest in October 11th, I said the same thing again. Metaphor Refantasio. This one is either going to be really, really good or really, really mid. I don't know if it'll be bad. I think I said it before when I talked about the trailers for this game. It looks way too much like it's just trying to be Persona, but just with a much more sharp, and I mean literally sharp art style. Like I don't look at what I see with that game and think that it's gonna overshadow Persona, and I don't really think it's gonna do too great. Like my interest is actually relatively low for this. I'll still get around to it at some point, maybe not this year. If the reviews are good, I'll probably still get around to it. But like, for a game that you would have thought that I would have been pretty into, I'm not exactly that interested in it. And it's part of the reason why this has been a much more dead gaming quarter for me, because there's not nearly as much hype as there was in the first half of the year. So, I mean, like, if I had to put a guess to it, I think it'll be a hit. I don't think it'll be a big hit, but I think it'll be fine. 15th of October, I don't know if it's pronounced Neva or Neva, but it's the really artsy indie game that the Grease creators did. It's the one where there's the like really beautifully like cel shaded like giant wolf thing or whatever it was. I think that's just a case of like that'll probably get really good reviews, and it's just a matter of would it be good enough to take out like another indie game that will take in that spot? Probably not, but I think it's something worth to at least pay attention to. I mean, again, the Grease creators, Grease is a fantastic game, so or Gree. I can't remember how it's pronounced, but it was a fantastic game. So I would keep an eye out for that one. October 17th, Super Mario Party Jamboree. You can't think anything of this game. It's not going to do anything. It's going to do well because it's a Switch game. It's a Mario game. It's a Nintendo game. It'll do fine. Ratings-wise, it's not going to do anything remotely good enough to get any sort of recognition. Maybe it might get a nominee for like a party game or a family game sort of deal, but that's as far as it's going to go. October 22nd is the early access for No More Room in Hell 2. Because early access, I doubt we would see any sort of award for that. But I will say this is pretty much without, like, apart from Life is Strange and the Dragon Quest III remake, this is easily one of the most anticipated things I have on my list. And that's only because I really need a new multiplayer game to play, because Helldivers, until the third race comes into play, I'm not nearly as hot on anything else multiplayer right now. So I'm really excited for that. I don't know if we'll be getting it because it's early access. I guess it really depends on how the reviews come in for it. But as it stands right now, like it's definitely up there on my list of things to keep an eye on. Maybe not play at launch, maybe not play in the first month, but we'll see. October 24th, Date Everything. I had to put that in there because it's the stupidest concept of all the games that we have on here, and of course I have to mention that. It won't rate well probably, but it'll be a fun little experience. It's meant to be stupid. I will happily play that at some point and have a blast with its idiocy. But I was about to say idiocracy. I'm like, that's not a word. But yeah, I don't expect much out of this. I think it'll just be a fun little romp there. The most interesting and big name on the list, October 25th, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I said, I don't know how long ago on the podcast, but I said that if there is any game that could really shock people, it's this one, because it's going to be the first Call of Duty on Game Pass. And my thought process is you would expect that Microsoft, knowing that this is the first COD that a lot of people are going to be playing more than usual because it's going to be essentially free on Game Pass, that they would put way more effort into this one than previous games. That being said, it's still Activision, and Microsoft doesn't really have a hit still. So it's either going to be really, really good, or it's just going to be another mid to meh Call of Duty game. And, well, if I really had to put a guess on it now, I'd say it's fine. I'm at the point that, like, I don't feel like there's enough hype now with the trailers that are making people suddenly think that it's going to be any different. It's probably just going to be another copy and paste formula, and it's not really going to do anything crazy. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect anything much out of this. Like, I said it as, like, a big hot take that I was like, man, I'm going to look like a genius if I'm right on this, but the longer that it's gone, I don't think we're going to see that. Now, if I end up being correct and it somehow gets a nominee, again, I will say I fucking called it, but I will also admit that I've been down on that guess since then. But yeah, that's probably one of the more interesting ones to see where that goes, but I have a feeling that it's going to be just another Call of Duty game. Also on the same day, on the 25th of October, Sonic X Shadow Generations. It might be good, it might be okay, it might be bad. You never know with a Sonic game. I would probably just lean in the fine category. I think, Generations games generally are decent. I don't think it'll be as good as Sonic Generations, I think, because most of the intrigue out of that has already been done, not to mention that Sonic Generations came after a myriad of really bad Sonic games, so I think a lot of people were just happy that it wasn't shit, whereas there have been some decent Sonic games as of late, Frontiers notwithstanding, but, there's a little more positivity with Sonic right now, so I don't think a Generations game is going to get so much more of a higher rating because the games preceding the original Generations were so bad that I think people were just really, really happy to see a good one. But I think this will be fine. October 29th, Life is Strange Double Exposure. This is another one of the big ones on my list. I don't think it'll be good enough to get a nomination, but I think it should be pretty good. I mean, Life is Strange has, apart from the second one, always been very good. I think True Colors actually is a very underrated game and very under-talked about game. So if you haven't played Life is Strange True Colors, I would suggest you do so if you haven't. I mean, if you're into more like interactive visual novel sort of stuff. But I think that Double Exposure taking on more of the Max Caulfield arc, I think is an interesting way to look at it. I still don't know how I feel about it. I think I would have preferred just a new story, but at the same time, I'm not opposed to it because I did like the original a lot. So we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, I don't think it'll be nominee level, but I think it will be a hit. But I think this has like a shot to potentially get a nomination, but that's only because I think that there is a relatively weak year this year that it can possibly get in on. So it might have a shot, but that will not be because it's an amazing game so much as it's just a really good game in a field of really good games. 10, why am I not saying October? October 31st, we got a couple of games. This is just because, it's bringing back the original Clock Tower Rewind. I will never play this game because fuck Clock Tower, but for horror fans, just something to look at. I didn't even realize it was being done until now, and it's the original Clock Tower. So, yeah, one of the original horror franchises that really understood the assignment. I played 5 minutes of the original ones on an emulator just to see. And there's a reason I lasted 5 minutes. So, nope. Also on the 31st, Dragon Age The Veilguard. I am willing to be at the point that I think this game's going to be bad. I probably am wrong because I think it's just a fact that I don't like what it's turning into. But everything that I see in the trailers makes me think that it's BioWare and they still don't know what the hell they're doing anymore. So I think it's going to be a really rough game. If it finishes higher than an 80 in Metacritic, I would be shocked at this point. I'm not even sure if it'll stay above a 75. We'll see. But my biases are telling me that this is going to be a really bad game, and I have no interest in playing it right now. So, yeah, I'm not exactly looking too forward to this. I mean, look, like the graphic style is a thing. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm also not hating it. But it's more the gameplay. The fact that they're not doing the old system, the fact that it's more action-based, it looks like. Again, I don't like that. Mass Effect, I saw people complain about it between 1 and 2. They didn't really change much so much as it was the ammo system. That was really the big change. So, like, I'm not sitting there going nearly as hard on that compared to, say, Dragon Age Inquisition and Dragon Age The Veilguard, because The Veilguard feels like a completely different battle system now, and I'm not a fan of that at all. But the story that they've shown so far isn't interesting. The characters that they've shown so far are not interesting. So, like, nothing I'm seeing here is making me go, oh man, this is gonna be good. I'm more in the camp of, I don't care. Like, give me a reason to care, and I might, but I'm not. And that's where we stand here. So I'm currently thinking it's gonna be a miss, and we'll see where that goes. Last thing on the 31st is the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. Not much to say about that. I will be talking about this in the recap, actually, because of the price increase. So look out for that. We are actually, I should note too, recaps are going to be on Fridays now, and the side quest is going to be on Mondays because we want the recap to be a little closer to when some of these stories would be, because obviously if this recap comes out on Monday and there's stories from over 2 weeks ago almost. It's a little bit out of date, so we're going to just push those to Friday to move that around. But I do talk about the price increase that is going on with Horizon Zero Dawn ahead of this remaster. So look forward to that on Friday. But apart from that, like, no one asked for this remaster apart from maybe 5 people. So no one cares. This is an inconsequential thing. It's just you put it on the list because, well, it's Horizon Zero Dawn. November 6th, Planet Coaster 2, fun little PC game. I'm sure Chris will be interested in that. I'm sure a lot of you builder fans are going to be pretty happy about that. My hot take is I never enjoyed Roller Coaster Tycoon. I wasn't a big fan of that. I was more of a theme hospital guy. So when they brought out what's the new ones that they did? What's that series now? I'm blanking. Yeah, I can't remember, but you guys will know what I'm talking about. Like there was like the homage to the old like theme hospital and like university games, like stuff like that. I just can't think for the life of me what the name of it is now. But those games are more my style. The Roller Coaster Tycoon stuff never really hit with me too well. But Planet Coaster, I'm sure will be a hit with the people that are actually going to play it. November 7th, Mario and Luigi Brothership. I'm glad to see these games. I don't know have they released a game on Switch before? I don't remember. Let me see. Mario and Luigi series. Let's see. Because I want to say, because they were just handheld for the longest time. And yeah, it is the first Switch one. Okay. Because the other ones were, they were all 3DS. And then I think I'm just going here. Yeah, so yeah, Brotherhood's going to be or Brothership is going to be the first one that is going to be on Switch. I think it'll be fine. I don't know if it'll be so good that it would get a nomination, but I mean, again, a Nintendo game and a JRPG from the Mario and Luigi series, they're generally pretty solid. So I would be shocked if it was a bad game. I think it's just going to be like a perfectly serviceable one. Another big horror game on the 8th, Slitterhead. I've said many, many times, I will never play this game, but goddamn do the trailers look good. Or make it look good, too. I'm in the camp of it'll be good. I don't know if it would be nominee level, depending on, well, at least not for Game of the Year. But I think that this should do relatively well. As long as it plays well, the horror elements will work itself out. Like, that part will be fine. It's just the gameplay that needs to really shine here. I think all that I've seen for it tells me that it's probably going to be pretty good. I don't know if I would go so far as to say nominee level, though, but I think it'll be just fine. The last real big one on my radar, November 14th, the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. I am so looking forward to this. I have never played a Dragon Quest game younger than Dragon Quest VIII on the PlayStation 2, so I'm really excited to play one of the older ones. It looks gorgeous. I love the HD 2D thing that gets done now, like the Octopath Traveler sort of graphics, same with what 8 and Chronicle did. You know, I wish more games would just go to this now. I'd like to see so many more games do that instead of trying to do a full remake. Yeah, Square, I would like to see a couple of Final Fantasy games, you know, done with a nice flair to it, but you don't have to spend like $1 billion on your budget, because that's how Square budgets seem to work these days. It won't be a nominee, the Dragon Quest III remake, like for Game of the Year. I think it'll be pretty goddamn solid, though, so we'll see how that goes from there. Also on the 14th, Lego Horizon Adventures. Again, perfectly fine. You honestly, it's really hard to find a bad Lego game, so I don't expect it to be, you know, amazing, but I don't also expect it to be bad. I think you're looking at a perfectly serviceable, like, you know, high 70s, low 80s on Metacritic. It'll be pretty fine. Path of Exile 2 Early Access on November 15th. Again, Early Access, I don't know if that would get any sort of nominee things. I know people that swear by Path of Exile, and I'm sure are fucking stoked to see this game finally nearly on its way out. I'm not too into these types of games. Like, Diablo hasn't worked for me. Baldur's Gate 3 didn't work for me. Divinity Original Sin 2 didn't work for me. It just seems like that type of game doesn't really jive with me personally. But for those that I know that play these types of games, Path of Exile, as a free game too, was, you know, a very welcome addition for them. So pretty excited for that group, but I think it'll be just perfectly fine. November 19th, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. You're not going to see nominees out of it, but I mean, they obviously put a lot of work into these, so it's pretty impressive what they do with that. So I would expect it to be perfectly fine. The last real interesting one, and I'll tell you why the one at the bottom of the list is not, but on the 20th of November, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. The trailers that we have seen for this game make it look very, very good. That being said, as I said earlier, Microsoft has had some trouble getting a real good hit out there. Apart from Hi-Fi Rush, which the studio, they closed. But anyways, Stalker 2 looks really, really interesting. I think it's got a chance to get a nomination, but I also think that there is a potential for this to be very, very mid. And I'm not really sure where I fall. Like, I'm kind of in the in-between I have to be at this point, so I think it'll be fine. My hope, though, is that this would be a potential nominee candidate. That would be my hope, because I am actually looking forward to this one quite a bit. You know, this will be right around the time that, like, when this is on its way out, the way that I'm kind of thinking, because again, I don't have Game Pass anymore because fuck them for the price increases that they're doing and the changes with Ultimate. My plan is to do 1 month, and it'll be right around the time that Stalker 2 comes out if the reviews are good. And I want to take a look at that, play through the campaign of Black Ops 6, and then if I have enough time, take a look at Indiana Jones and see how that is. Although my opinion of that is not very high, and I will talk about that when I get to that towards the end. By the way, that was the one I was talking about at the bottom. But I think this one is a pretty good chance to do at least some good damage, and we'll see how it goes. I still lean in the fine category. I don't think it'll be a nominee candidate. I think it has a chance to be, but I personally don't think it will. Then we have a big skip all the way into December 5th. Now, again, this is a list that I made just based off of games that I think have like real name recognition, have a real chance to like be good, or just like personal interests of mine. So if there's something that isn't on the list, like don't think it's me thinking that it's not like it wasn't there. It's just me going like, I don't know if it's something that's really worth talking about, in my opinion. If, you know, it had been the three of us, maybe we could have brought some more out there, but we might have also really cut the list shorter because there would have been three of us talking. This is why we're doing a whole list, because it's just me. We don't have to worry about rambling. I'm actually surprised. I'm doing relatively good at not going off of tangents this time around. But anyway, skipping to December 5th, the Fantasia Neo Dimension, sort of. I'm trying to remember. That's how forgettable it is, because Chris and I were talking about it from the State of Play, where we were like, man, like, who cares? Like Square, what are you doing? Like, this doesn't look like it's an interesting game at all. And the UI, that's right. The UI looks so goddamn mobile on that. It looks ugly as fuck. And I'm not impressed at all with what I saw from that trailer. So, personally, I think it's going to fall in a miss. And that's not just because I think it's bad, but it's also because Square's proven that they have no idea what they're doing with JRPGs most of the time now. So, that's where I'm leaning on that. 3 more games. We are almost at the end here. The 6th of December is Marvel Rivals. I had to put it in there because A, it's Marvel, and B, it's a live service game that we all want to see die. My expectation is it will be mid, and people will not care about it in about 2 weeks after it's released. So there's that. I'll say the 10th. Indiana Jones is the 9th. I'll say the 10th for Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remaster, just to quickly get out of the way. I want to take a look at that at some point because I never played those games, but like I don't think that's going to do anything special. Not to mention that this might be around the time that the awards are pretty much already decided. Indiana Jones, I think, is the only thing that people are waiting on. So I don't think that this will really do anything. Not to mention it's a remaster. I wouldn't expect much out of it either, but I am kind of curious about it because I never did play them. But we will finish off on the 9th of December with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So initially there was interest. And then I saw it was going to be first person, and I went, oh, it's a Bethesda first person game. Ugh. Not that psyched. And then we saw more trailers, and it looked interesting. And then we see more trailers, and I go, well, it's not selling me because we saw certain bits of combat, and I didn't really think it looked that good. And the longer that I think about it, the more and more that I'm like, man, do I even want to play this game? That's how my opinion has fluctuated so much. It went from, it's a first-person Bethesda game. Do I want to play this? To, yeah, you know what? This looks like it might be fun. Maybe I'll take a good crack at this. To where I'm currently at, which is, no, I don't even know if I want to play this at all. Like, now I'm, like, almost out. So, I mean, look, if you put the gun to my head and said, what do you think it's going to be? I think it's going to be a miss. And that's just off of the vibes that I'm getting off of the trailers, mixed with my own biases against Bethesda, which have not really done well for me. Like, Starfield was okay. I will say, like, I enjoyed the time with Starfield that I had, but I'm not going to sit here and say it was a great time. Like, it's an okay game. And I don't expect Indiana Jones, with the way that it is, I don't think it's going to go very well, personally. So, yeah, like, if you ask me to put a Metacritic rating to it, I think it's getting high 70s at best. I don't know if it gets better than that. I really don't. I don't really have a high opinion of what I've seen from it now. So, you know, like if I really had to look at our list in total here, the things that have a shot at like, you know, doing some damage with nominees, I'd say Silent Hill 2 Remake's definitely got a shot. I think Metaphor ReFantazio could be a sleeper if it's really, really good, but I think it's really hard to believe that it will. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 could, again, if they actually are back to true form, maybe they could, but I don't think they'll do anything special with it. Life is Strange Double Exposure has a shot, but I think it's going to be more of a case of, well, it's a field of really good games, and it's a really good game, so it just, you know, it's a coin flip. You know, you could make a case for Dragon Age the Veilguard, but I just have such a low opinion of it that I just can't believe it. Slitterhead could be a sleeper. And then Stalker 2, I did say. I mean, is there a chance that Indiana Jones could be? Sure. And those are the ones that I could all think of off the entire list that I think could have a shot at it. But this is the 6 games that currently in my head should be nominated for Game of the Year. I'm going to give reasons as to why. And then I will look at this list again and see what could be moved out and what could take its place. So right off the top, I don't like the fact that this is probably the favorite. And I'll say why in a second. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has to be on this list. It is the de facto best rated game of the year right now. The problem is I actually don't think this should be on the list because I think it is such a poorly made open world game. It just happens to be really well liked because, well, it's Final Fantasy VII. The story bits are actually really, really good, albeit until the end, but it's really, really well done in the story bits of it. But as an actual game, half of that game is not necessary. If you cut half of that game out, we could have a whole different discussion. I could say that this is the de facto game of the year, no questions asked. But because of that open world, I docked so many points off of that game that I don't even know if I'd nominate it if it was my personal list, right? I mean, if I go, let me pull up my documents where I have my list of completed games from this year. Out of all the games on the list, Final Fantasy VII I gave a 4.5 out of 6. There are in total 1, 2... Can't hit an arrow right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games that I have played that released this year that I would put above Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, most of these won't get nominated because they're either indie or, let's be honest, no one's paying attention to them and no one would vote for them. Because I wish Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes would get a nomination for Game of the Year, but it won't. I wish Bakaru would get a nomination for Game of the Year, but it won't. I wish Until Then would get a nomination, but it won't. Penny's Big Breakaway, but it won't. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, but it won't. There are other games that just, it's a blind side for people. So, you know, it's a real shame. I'll tell you guys actually at the end of this what my current, you know, top 6 nominations would be. And, you know, if I don't count the games that I think are going to be here. But so Final Fantasy VII Rebirth by, you know, just the fact that it is the highest rated game right now. And let's be real, the only really good AAA game out there. That's why it's there. Helldivers 2 should still be there. I know that the hype has gone from this game, but let's make no mistake, this was the most popular game for a long period of time when it came out. And honestly, is the first multiplayer game in a long time that has actually been so beloved by everybody, and at launch, very few people had anything bad to say about it, apart from the fact that it was just a broken mess because, well, they didn't design the servers expecting about quadruple the numbers they thought they were going to get, if not more than that. But yeah, that has to be on there. I will be shocked if it's not, but I will be upset if it's not, because I think that it's, again, that case of people are remembering how people have walked away from that game now. But like, this is a game that I think deserves all the praise in the world and really should get that, because I think I also just need this nominated so that people understand what a live service game is supposed to fucking look like, so they stop building all this bullshit. But it is what it is. We get into 2 indie games. Balatro absolutely has to be on there, especially now that it's doing amazingly well mobile. I think that game is, last time I checked, it's still a 5.0 on mobile ratings. Do you know how hard that is to do? It's phenomenally well put together, and another one of those just culturally iconic games. Along with that is Animal Well, which is the highest rated indie game out there. So by that logic, at least one indie game should belong on there. I honestly think we're at a point that like indie games should just be taking over, because the AAA market is fucking egregious right now. But Balatro and Animal Well, I would both put in there. I can make very strong cases for both of them. I didn't even like Animal Well that much, but I'm one of the few people that seem to not care for it that much because, good lord, a lot of people love that game. Also, let's be honest. Who doesn't want to see Donkey make a video about him being nominated for Game of the Year for his publisher Big Mode? You know you want to see that video. The other two games I have Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I think that is rated well enough to deserve that. I also think that is one of those games that, a lot of people really need to take an eye on. A lot of people still aren't very aware of the Yakuza series. I know, Kaylan, you're going to hear this and get mad, but sorry, it should be on there because it's one of the best games of the year and people should be playing more of these. But I think, again, like, it's, to me, between this and Rebirth, I think this is the better JRPG because it does everything very, very well, including its open world, which Rebirth does not do well. If I honestly was going to if I was voting and these were the two choices I had for Game of the Year, I'd be picking Infinite Wealth over Rebirth because Infinite Wealth is actual core gameplay is good because it's an open world game. So is Rebirth, and Rebirth's open world sucks. So Infinite Wealth, I think, just on that logic alone, deserves it. And then the last one I have on here is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, because you got to put a Nintendo game in there. I think it's deserving of it too. Like, the reviews coming out for it are very, very good. I mean, but, I honestly think that if it was last year, this wouldn't even be a top 10. But it's a weaker year, so a game like this would do very, very well. So that is our list. That is the list that I think currently, if I was to bet money on what the 6 nominations were going to be, this is what I would put down. I know I'm wrong for sure. Like, I think one of Balatro and Animal Well wouldn't be on it, and likely Infinite Wealth wouldn't be either. You would probably see something like, I'm trying to think of what games could possibly have taken it. Let me pull up Metacritic here. Let's see, what are they rating as the best games of 2024? So, I mean, Tekken's really high rated, but I don't know if I could see a Tekken game get it. Like, Street Fighter was made a little bit more sense because it's Street Fighter and it's the biggest fighting game out there. I don't know about Tekken. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, isn't that a Yeah, it's a remake, so I wouldn't put it there. And that's just my opinion. I don't like the fact that remakes get on there because I don't think it should. Persona 4 3 Reload, that's also a redo, so I wouldn't count it. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, not a chance. That would never get there. I wish Unicorn Overload. I still gotta play Unicorn Overload. I played the demo and loved it, but I haven't gotten around to the it's not on PC, and PlayStation Store has never really had a good sale for it. In other ratings, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, I know Kaylan swears by this game, but I just can't see a game like that getting it. Riven, I doubt it too, but I mean, that, I don't know if I could give it to that, though. I'm really not convinced. Dragon's Dogma 2 is the one that I think could be like, that could probably replace one of the things I have here. I think out of all the games, that would be the one that I would be concerned about taking one of my spots. That would honestly be the game that either one of Balatro and Animal Well or Infinite Wealth could get taken out by. And I would probably believe that would be likely too. Like, if I had to take a guess, I think it would take out Infinite Wealth, and we'd have Balatro and Animal Well still there. That's just kind of how I look at it. In terms of the games that I thought from the rest of the year that I think might take the spot, so if we look at what's left on here, I mean, Infinite Wealth would be probably the first thing that goes, and then one of Balatro and Animal Well would go. I really do believe that Rebirth is going to be there. Zelda's got to be there, because Nintendo fanboys will lose their goddamn mind if it isn't. I really do believe Helldivers 2 should be there. I'm really going to fight that one. And then one of those two indie games have to be there. I would just lean to Animal Well just because of the critical acclaim. So let's just say we have 2 spots open. What would be the most likely ones? I would say at this point, if I had to put money on it, I would say the Silent Hill 2 remake has a good chance. And if I really want to do one other one, I will go with Slitterhead. I will go out there and go with Slitterhead. I think Stalker 2 is a close third, but if I had to pick 2 games, I think I might go the horror route and see what works with that. So, like, at this current time, I think the nominations are Rebirth, Helldivers 2, Balatro, Animal Well, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. I think there's a chance that by the end of this, you could see Rebirth, Helldivers, Silent Hill 2 remake, Animal Well, Slitterhead, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I do think that Stalker 2 has a shot. I think Life is Strange could have a shot. I think Call of Duty could have a shot if it actually is a really, really good improvement. But if I had to pick two, those are the two I would take as Silent Hill 2 and Slitterhead. Indiana Jones could really come out and just knock heads and surprise people, but I just don't see it. Dragon Age the Veilguard could surprise people. I just don't see it. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning here. So that's what I think it's going to be. You guys listening to this, what do you think? So as we get to the end of the show here, if you're watching on YouTube, well, there's a comment section right there. Let us know what you think. Obviously, if you're also here, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're listening on an audio podcast, well, may I suggest Linktree, linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast, where there's a link to our Discord, and you can talk to us about what you think in our Discord. Not to mention, well, you can go to YouTube and comment there if you want to see the video version of the podcast, or maybe you just are an audio listener and that's how it is. Regardless, however you get your podcasts, if you can give us any sort of rating, comment, share with all your friends, please do so. I already gave the link tree, so you got that stuff there. We will be here next week, hopefully all three of us again. But don't forget, like I said earlier in the show, the recaps will now be on Fridays, and the side quests will be on Mondays. So the recap, as I'm trying to remember what I talked about. So I talked about the Assassin's Creed Shadows delay. We talked about the PlayStation. There was a weird, I don't know if it was a glitch or if it was a decision on Sony's part, but there was a thing going on for a little bit that the PlayStation 5 home screen was displaying ads instead of the normal background art. I will also talk about Backyard Baseball making a comeback. And what was the fourth story? Why am I blanking? Good Lord, Adam. You have one job and you couldn't do it. What was that third story? It was Horizon's Prices. I even said that during the show. What is wrong with me? But yeah, there's those 4 topics on the recap. And then for the side quests, I'm going to see how many Mortal Kombat characters I can name. Will I do well? Probably not. Will I forget one really, really obvious one? Oh, you bet your ass I probably will. I just have to hope it's not going to be one from the original game, because if it's one of those, I am going to be super embarrassed. But look forward to that on Monday. So with that being said, everybody, thank you so much for checking out this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun rambling on for what's probably about 40 minutes. I guess I'll find out when I edit this sucker. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Have yourself a good rest of your day and take care. Bye-bye for now.